One of the main reasons that vehicles can last either 300,000 miles or not even make it 100,000 miles. Is it the engines, transmissions, bad electronics, or just high cost of maintenance and servicing? Well, today we're going to share the difference between a brand new Toyota Camry and a late model Mercedes C-Class. Later on, we're going to give them both a quality test, and I'm going to also explain why I bought myself a new Toyota Camry. Let's get into it now. Life's too short to drive boring cars. Many car manufacturers mess up once in a while. The Toyota and Lexus always deliver high quality and relatively reliable vehicles, while Mercedes has had certainly some ups and downs throughout the years. The latest Consumers Reports indicates that Mercedes has slipped 5 points, and they've slipped all the way down to number 24 in terms of overall reliability, while Toyota has edged up to number 1 and Lexus being number 2 slot. So the quality or lack thereof between these two brands is very, very intentional. A lot of it comes from at the very top. Priorities. Where's the dollars best spent? Some car brands like Mercedes value innovation, the latest technology and performance just for bragging rights on the latest newspaper and magazine. While Toyota, on the other hand, focuses more on quality, longevity, pride in construction, and an overall reputation that they don't want to see slip. In fact, they've known to be one of the most reliable brands for many, many years now. The first one we have is a Mercedes right here. And what we have here is a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. It's longitudinally, that means it runs front to back. It's got a transmission behind it. Drive shaft goes to a rear differential. This one's predominantly a rear-wheel drive vehicle. Of course, it's also made it up to front-wheel drive system because this is 4MATIC. It's all-wheel drive. That means all 4 wheels can drive at the same time as traction's required. Now, of 2 liters, this car makes over 240 horsepower, so that's a lot of stress on that engine. And over here on the Toyota side, this is a 2.5 liter larger displacement, makes less power at 200 horsepower, but you'll notice it's transversely mounted engine. In other words, it's bolted directly to a transaxle right here, which drives directly to the front wheels. Now this particular car is an SE all-wheel drive model, so this one does have the optional rear drive as needed. But there's a lot of parts under this Toyota hood here that make this a lot more reliable than the Mercedes. Let's talk about some of that. Just look at airbox. Very sturdy. Over here, floppy jalopy right there, quite loose. We also can't forget this car has a turbo mounted down in there. And what we have here is excess amount of heat building up there. Of course, you have a lot of plastic, and of course it's right next to the engine. And what that means is excess amount of heat against the engine where you don't want it. Boo. Over here, sure, it's not all about making less power is better, but it certainly adds for reliability for the most part, because all you have now is the heat that's coming right off the back of the engine and it goes straight out the back. You don't have any excess heat building up in here that is unwanted. Now, don't get me wrong, less power isn't always better. As a matter of fact, there's cars with way more power that have even a higher level of reliability. Look at a Porsche 911 Turbo. Some cars and some brands just literally know how to piece it together to give you the right combination of performance and reliability. Turbos aren't all bad, but it all comes down to the care and attention at the manufacturer's end. But you want to see some other reasons why this car here will literally not last as long as the Toyota. Take a look. See a hose like this? What do we have here? This is a coolant hose from a BMW, but it's very, very similar. You'll notice it actually has this metal locking key in there, but it's a plastic end, and it's meant to go on one way and one way only. Mercedes using a lot of the same type of parts like that, like here, like down in there. More snap together fittings here, or right here, also locking ring. Those are parts that are very easy to reconnect in the factory, but unfortunately they get very, very expensive. It's a pricey hose to replace, as well as unfortunately that heating, splitting, heating, cool cycle actually cracks those fittings very soon, very easy. And then it just becomes a catastrophic nightmare. Sometimes the way these vehicles are packaged to get in there and actually remove it, it's not as simple as like on a bench removing a hose. Sometimes they're buried in there deep. But the problem is they fail far more frequently than you find in a Toyota like this. Right there, in Toyota, what are they using there? They use this fancy all-tension clamp right there. You have another one right there. Very easy, very simple. How about this? Look at this! Good old-fashioned cap. So there's also some other factors to consider too. In the Mercedes, you have a lot more plastics, a lot more parts. Of course, you have an intercooler, the turbo, all the cooling lines, as well as the oiling line systems. Fortunately, we have a dipstick. Many modern German vehicles don't even have that. And while the chassis design to made light and efficient is made to improve overall performance, it doesn't go a long way to a much more sturdy, robust design that you find in a good old-fashioned Toyota Camry like this. Yes, you can still do the old-fashioned sniff test on your oil dipstick, just to make sure you don't have any oil or fuel dilution issues. After all, it is a direct injected engine with variable valve timing. The serviceability is very easy in this vehicle. Easy access for battery, brake booster, air filters, water pump change, O2 sensor down in the back there. You get the theme? If a vehicle is easy to access, easy to service, and cheap for parts, they tend to stay on the road a lot longer instead of vehicles like this, which are very costly because a lot of people are scared to even get under the hood of these vehicles. They're too complex, a lot of parts are buried deep, and a lot of the people that end up owning these just can't wrench on them themselves and have to pay the $200 an hour shop rate just to get this thing fixed. So it's not that Mercedes has a bad engine design. Most of their engines are actually relatively robust. It's just that Toyota does it a little simpler, and when things do go, they're actually much, much cheaper to fix. Another example, how about a good old-fashioned prop rod? You need two of those, $150 a piece. Or how about this? Nothing wrong with that, simple, but it holds it up, doesn't it? And I personally own vehicles where they start to get a little bit tired, those prop rods, then they start to lose slack, and eventually you've got your head under the hood and they start to fall down on your head, and you got to use an extra snow brush or something to hold them up anyhow. The bottom line is keep it simple for longevity. If you want to buy a car like this, it's a much better car for 2-3 year purchase, but if you think you're going to own this for 10 or 15 years, you got another thing coming. Another reason Mercedes probably won't last nearly as long as Toyota is just the sheer fact that many owners are going to give up on the cost of maintenance and repairs. I'll explain a few examples. What we're looking at here are the Toyota Camry brakes right there. You're looking at about $200 an axle, times 2, you're $400 an axle. And if you have to have discs in there, you're up to about $800, maybe $1,000 Canadian to get this whole car re-braked. This car, on the other hand, you're going to be a different story. You're going to be much closer to $2,000 to $2,500 to do the same brake upgrade on the backs as well as on the fronts for this Mercedes. Recently also, this headlight here had to be replaced, $2,800 for that. This here online, Amazon. You can find this for about $800. So if you ever have a little fender bender, this front skin is going to be a lot cheaper. This is going to be way cheaper than the Mercedes, which is going to literally break the bank. Think about that car when it's about 10 years old, if it even makes that. The vehicle is probably only going to be worth about $7,000 or $8,000, and then you go and have to throw a $3,000 headlight on that? That's one light. That's ridiculous. Oil changes, $90 all in. Right here, $200 all in. Air filter, $150. Over here, $32. Let's also not forget Toyota shop rate when you need a repair done is far less per hour than the Mercedes shop rate, which is going to be closer to 200 beans an hour. You're going to be paying a lot more money. Now people say, yeah, but I want to drive, I love driving something nice. Well, that's entirely your choice. I'm here to strictly tell you that this car won't last all that long. If you're an average person trying to get in on one of these on the used car market, trying to stay on ahead of the maintenance is going to be a real pain. Now then you wonder how these cars actually fare up with overall reliability. Well, generally Toyotas are overall quite reliable. The weak points generally have to do a little bit more with suspension bushings and brakes, are a little underrated for its vehicle capacity, and the Mercedes has to do less with the engine and less with the transmission and more so with the electrics, the non-engine based electrics. For example, the infotainment system has been known to freak out. We also had a problem here recently because of the cold weather where we got an alarm and it basically said something like, leave engine running, park car. So what that basically means is it's drawing an excess amount of amps. Either the battery's low or weak, it's not charging adequately, maybe there's a fault somewhere in the system or a draw. The reality is this car was actually sitting for a significant amount of time that led to that fault. But the point is, there's problems, faults, and glitches for every one of these little issues. Tire pressure monitoring has also been a very common problem with these vehicles. Seems like they're very, very sensitive. Now, the Toyota also has some tire pressure monitoring issues, so that's not uncommon, and that's literally what we're talking about here, is all the extra added technology is causing the extra expense and the long-term ownership costs that are likely enough to choke a horse. So I hope that paints a picture. So yes, we bought the Mercedes because it's fun to drive, it's attractive, performs very well, it's efficient, has all the latest technology, so it's a wonderful vehicle. But yes, we also just bought the Toyota Camry because we needed something that's more reliable. We're not going to get hung up on high maintenance costs and reliability issues, so that's why this car now sits in our stable. But with all of that said, I'm going to now give you the full quality experience between a Toyota Camry and a late model Mercedes C-Class. Let's check it out. Right here. Over here. Right here. And right here, ooh, look at how flimsy that is. Oh, we gotta get that. Whoa. Let's try an engine cold start for both the Mercedes as well as the Toyota now. Take a listen to that unit purr. And listen to this little kitty purr right here. So which is the better quality? The Mercedes certainly has a nicer feel, tactile, the buttons, the knobs, the paddle shifters, the leather touch, the handles, all of those parts that you touch daily make you feel nicer. They actually feel better. They feel of a better quality, better tactile feel. The Toyota Camry, on the other hand, has a better structural rigidity. The body panels feel more solid. The interior feels a little bit better put together. On the other hand, the buttons and knobs and the controls of the Toyota Camry feel a little low grade, low rent, and relatively cheap. So you just have to ask yourself, what's the bigger priority? The overall nice feel that coddles you, makes you feel nice because the interior parts are nicer and more luxurious? Or do you want something that just built a little bit more like a tank? A little less finesse, but a little bit more like a Sherman tank. They're both great cars. They both serve their own purpose. The Toyota is clearly a car that's going to go for hundreds of thousands of miles, relatively low cost to get that done. And the Mercedes will cost you lots of money. However, you'll be riding in the lap of luxury. So to each his own. They're both great cars, but for longevity and 300,000 mile motoring, that's your bet. But for 100,000 mile motoring, that's your bet right there, the Mercedes C300. And with all of that said, right there, check out that video. I'm going to explain the whole situation with Mercedes and why, in fact, I actually bought one. Hope to see each and every one of you on the next one. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.